Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the lightest bind and fly 65mm whoop. Yep, it's the Happy Model MoBeetle 6. And they were kind enough to send me two, so I have one ready to go for flying outside. And if this video gets to 500 likes, I'll give one of these away. Haven't done that before. The MoBeetle 6 features 0702 23,000 kV motors. And of course, we've got 31mm bi-bladed props. The Runcam Nano 3 is the camera of choice. But the star of the show may be this new Diamond board. No, the Diamond board is not new necessarily, but this one has a 400mW VTX and it's got Express LRS. On my scale, it weighs 17.23 grams. Due to the battery lead length on the MoBeetle 6, I needed to use a battery with the pigtail on it, so I used these G&B 350 milliamp batteries. These are fairly old, probably 2+ years. And with that battery, it brings our flying weight to 25.75 grams. And if we go in this naked configuration, the MoBeetle 6 weighs 15.73 grams. And again, with that G&B battery, it weighs 24.25 grams. And motor post to motor post, I'm getting 65mm. In the naked configuration, it's only 60mm. So when you buy your MoBeetle 6, it'll come in this whoop configuration with this particular canopy. But it also comes with this canopy, which will give you more variable in the adjustment that you can create for your camera angle. And in this bag is the frame, as assembled here, along with the spare set of props, some screws. It looks like we've got some 3M pad, as well as a little tiny screwdriver. It also came with these Happy Model batteries, but I'm not certain that these come in the retail packages, so check your product listings, linked down in the video description. These will get you started, but I wouldn't plan on using them for very long. And it also came with 2 stickers. And it comes in this little box that you could put in your lunch pail. It's really small. Or if you've got it set up in the naked configuration, you could put it in an even smaller box. That's half the size. See? Just about half the size. Here are the rates I fly with, and I've been flying with these rates for a very long time, and I always use these rates because that's what I'm used to. Otherwise, I wouldn't be showing the product as I can show it, possibly. All right, for our full flight of the review video, we are going with the indoor flight. And this is at night. That's something to note because you don't have the bright sunlight coming through the windows, so you don't get to see that. I did show you a clip of a speed run as a kind of a fun little way of starting out the video. Sometimes when I crash out, I'll just, try to drop the throttle hard and just see how many hot laps I can turn in before I crash again. And some of you may have noticed that this appeared in a video back in February, at least an iteration of this appeared back in February. Happy Model had sent me essentially 2 of them and wanted me to test out the Diamond board. At that point in time, they had the Cube antenna on them, and they had 2 different kV motors, and they were asking, which one I thought was better. I thought the 23,000 kV was better, so they went with that, probably not just based upon that feedback. They probably also got additional feedback from team pilots or others as well. So I've been essentially flying this hardware for a couple months, which helps me sleep it well because I know that at least I have 4 iterations of this, and I know how many crashes it's been through, and I know what the results of those crashes have been. And all of my boards have been working normally. It's really nice to have that 400mW VTX. It's nice to have a lightest bind and fly whoop around, especially if you're into racing or you want to get into racing. Lower weight makes it easier in the house to manage flight, especially faster flight. It gives us the advantage of not towing around any extra grams. Or if you want to fly a little bit slower, you can use a little bit bigger battery like I did. If you use a smaller battery, like a 300mW or a 300 milliamp battery, then you can expect the flight time to come down, not substantially, but some. Again, my G&B batteries that I'm flying here are probably 2-3 years old. I got these shortly after these longer stick versions of the 350s came out. So our flight time is going to be roughly around 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and that's what I found on these batteries. I had a couple flights that would come in around 253, 258. I think I had one or two come in at like 301, 302. So for the most part, your flight time is going to be about 245 if you fly like I do. As you see here in front of you. Of course, you can always lower the camera angle. Both canopies give the ability to lower the camera angle, and you can slow yourself down if fast flight isn't what you want, or you're just not comfortable doing that yet. And I think that's probably one of the big questions that I've gotten right away is, is this manageable in the house? Well, I like 75 millimeter, and they're even faster with those 40 millimeter props. So this really wasn't that different. The motors slowed down quicker than I expected, but that was the really only difference outside of the actual weight of the quad. Okay, our flight has ended. You see there 241, and our battery has bounced back over to 3.578. So we're in good shape. So this is the outside flight, and you can't really tell, but if you look in the top right of the screen, you can see the trees moving around. The miles per hour on the wind was 17 miles an hour, and I thought about swapping this out for a calmer day that I was able to fly, but I thought it would be more interesting to show you in the configuration without the whoops that you could fly in pretty dramatic wind. Of course, 17 miles an hour, we're not feeling that. We're within a neighborhood, we've got trees, we've got fence, we've got other stuff cutting the wind down. But there is still a pretty good wind. I live in a windy place. It's generally got wind somewhere between, even on a calm day, it's 7 to 10 miles an hour. So this isn't terrible, but it's definitely not whoop sort of weather flying. I think most of our whoop veterans would probably concede that if you're going to go out flying a whoop, 17 mile an hour winds, even if you're not directly exposed to all of it, that's a little bit much, especially for something that's coming in at this weight, because it's going to have an impact. But that's the reason why I picked this particular flight, was the fact that I've got the wind. I can show you how it flies even in wind, because not every day is going to be a great day for flying an ultralight micro. We're also getting some greenery back, and you can see the progress on the pool. They were here just today, and I stepped outside, and I think we're real close. I think we're going to be able to swim next weekend, and that's exciting. And the outdoor cooking space over there behind the garage, that has started to progress. You see the lumber that's sitting out there. Some of that lumber is actually up in a structure, but we'll see that coming along in the next few weeks. And oddly enough, my flight time is about the same outside as it was inside. Which I did not expect, but I think it's probably because, one, you don't have the resistance of the whoops in our way of cutting through the air, and it's lighter in this configuration. You just don't have as much weight, so less weight, more efficiency. This thing, I think, is one of the advantages of it is that you do have the ability to transition it. It's not as though you can just flip a switch. It's going to take you 15-20 minutes to take all the little tiny screws out and move things around, but if you're someone who just flies whoops inside in the winter and you want something else to fly outside, it comes all in one package now. I don't think the carbon is necessarily very stiff, but I think the advantage is that it might not break. It'll just bend and flex, because I had some pretty dramatic crashes, and we'll show those where I ran into the post of the pergola, and I also hit the side of the house coming around the bush. Neither one had an impact other than to bend up some props, so that's a good thing. Inside, of course, I had loads of crashes. I've been flying these things for a while now, so like I said earlier. You will need to change your battery voltage. When it was shipped to me, the minimum cell voltage was at 2.9, and I think that's too low, so I pumped mine up a little bit to where I would start to get the land now, and then I could come in, back off the throttle, I could come in, land, and disarm as we hear on the table, and my battery would be in good shape at 3.5 volts. So I'll show you my battery settings so you can model those if you want to. Here are the battery settings that I mentioned. This is what I used in the flight video, so you can go ahead and use these if you want to, or use your own. You may have better batteries, better health on your batteries, so you might not need to make the particular adjustments I did. I don't encourage anybody to fly below 3 volts. At one point in time, we had one of the Happy model boards that suffered from a beta flight reset below 3 volts. This board does not suffer from that, so that was a one-time deal, thankfully. So to keep your batteries healthy, you shouldn't discharge them below 3 volts. We ultimately want to land disarmed and come back at 3.5 volts. If you want to come back more than that or real close to that, you know, it's all up to you. But I would say the closer to 3.5 volts, at least not lower, the better off you are. And of course, we do have the Wi-Fi Whoop Store charger, which is really, really handy. And something else that I learned, and I forgot to put it in that video, is what if you start charging or storage charging this, you can just, you know, when one of the batteries is done, whether it's storage charged or it's charged all the way, you can just hot swap the next battery in and it'll pick right back up charging. So that's a pretty awesome feature. So you don't have to wait for them all to complete and then unplug all your batteries and plug all the next set in and then start it over again. If one finishes before the others, unplug it, plug another one back in, and you're off to the races. So nice little handy thing. I'm thankful that this is about. I do wish it has some audible feedback for when things completed, and I wish we had that on a switch so we could turn that audible feedback on and off depending upon our desires. But nice little product. I think V3, if we can get a little bit of audio feedback, ooh, even better. Okay, so this is not Happy Model's first Express LRS. Whoop, this one was. I can't remember what you call this, but you might remember it all came out in this green frame. They used this 3-point canopy, which I'm not a fan of, especially with the Runcam Nano. Outside, you would tend to get jello in your footage. 2 reasons, because the canopy isn't stable up front, as well as I think this camera is just more susceptible to that. I showed you full sunlight outside footage. Hopefully that was enough to show you that I didn't see any jello, so if you see jello, please let me know. And this had 25,000 kV motors on it. Too high a kV, unfortunately. And I should step back for a moment and note that this diamond board that we see here, that was an initiative that Angry Dawn FPV really wanted, and he was really onto something. You know, you've got to give the guy credit. He looked at the boards and he saw a layout that would allow you to shave part of the PCB off and therefore shave some weight. And when it comes to super micros like this, shaving some weight is great. And then Happy Model, of course, ran with that, and now they've added Express LRS and a 400 milliwatt OpenVTX, which I think is pretty fantastic if you can fly legally at that power level. A couple of others that I had, these snuck into a video that I released on Whoops back in February. So these are the ones I've been flying. Little different configuration. You can see that they originally, when they sent these to me, they had the cube antenna on them. And then we have 20,000 and 23,000 kV motors. And they were kind of that low mounting profile as far as the camera or FPV goes. I do appreciate quite a deal because I have a bias of, I'm just not much of a fan of this style of camera. I break more cameras when they're down like this than when they're up proud. I don't know why that is, but that's my experience with these. So I like the fact that they've got this new canopy and we've got our camera up above our whoops, although it is pretty low profile. You look at that camera is just barely above our whoops. So that's a nice thing. And there's also, it's really hard to speak. There's 3 more points to where you can adjust the camera angle. Now the camera angle that I flew it at is what you see it. So this is the lowest or most modest camera angle that this particular canopy has. But we have the other canopy that's included with the kit, and this will give you all sorts of camera angle that you can adjust it to. And so if you want to fly slower, a natural way of flying slower would be to just decrease your camera angle. Bring it down to 5 degrees. Bring it down to 0 degrees if you want. That'll allow you, regardless of whoop, if you can bring the camera angle down, you can fly it or start to get comfortable in really any sort of space. And that brings me to one of the questions I got 4 or 5 times. I couldn't say, is it too fast? Well, no, I already said that my favorite is still the MoBeetle 7 ELRS. I really enjoy this. It's got the 4-point canopy, which I was kind of harping about for a while. And This design here is much better with the 4 points of mounting, so our camera isn't moving around. This one has the cube antenna, and I like this format. I'm completely comfortable in my house flying at the speeds this can produce. At the camera angle, of course, I control my speed via my camera angle, just like I was suggesting. I just feel I like the authority better on this, but I can understand some people just like the smaller footprint, and in this case, you've got the ability to transition to a non-prop guarded, so you can fly it outside in wind. Yeah, it's got its advantages for certain. I think the next question would be, is it better than a MoBeetle 6? I think you have to give it to the nod as better than a MoBeetle 6. It's got Express LRS, which is really just taking the market. I'm a big proponent of that, so I guess I'm selling you on the Express LRS side because I think Express LRS, especially in micros, is not only here now, but in the future, it's just going to continue to be more and more prevalent. And the receivers are tiny and they're inexpensive, even if you're not in a whoop. So, you know, as I've said in other videos, I'm using the Zorro that's got the internal Express LRS. I've got a bag full of about 10 more Express LRS receivers that they're, what, 1.5 or 2 grams, set to use in any builds I might be taking on. Two bits of damage to report. One, the antenna did come off. I'm not certain how that happened on this one. I suspect it just kind of got bent around from, you know, crashing in turtle mode, or it might have gotten snagged on a rug or something, and when I turtle mode, it might have snapped it loose. Possibly, because I noticed when I went to resolder it, it did have a bump. I couldn't tell if that was copper or just solder, the little bump. And this is the pad you want to resolder to if this happens. So I did resolder an antenna. I happened to have some copper wire around that was pretty small. Cut it as close as I could to 31.23 millimeters and soldered it back on the board, and away we go. The other break point is this point right down here. Where is it? Yeah, right here. I always break these battery trays on these MoBeetle 6 frames. It's not a big deal. You take out some welder or your favorite adhesive, put a little on there, it'll hold just fine. I think my other complaint about the battery tray in general is that it's just kind of loose. It's always been loose. It's just a little bit oversized. I mean, you can see there's some slop and some play in there. Of course, you could take some electrical tape, masking tape, whatever kind of tape you've got to thicken things up. It's not terrible. How I would mount the battery in there, it would be like this. So I would kind of use the connector to my advantage of trying to keep the battery in there. Because if you've flown a whoop with a dangling battery, that is a challenge to bring back home for certain. Oh, what else? This frame, as far as the ducting, it has held up fine. We've seen this frame for a long, long time. Many of you have probably flown this frame in multiple iterations. If you did have a propensity of going to a different frame, I have got a video that I just released the other day. Go look at the comments. We got a lot of good feedback from a lot of people about frame durability, and there seems to be 2 frames that they go to, and that's the Meteor 65 as well as the Cockroach frame from Newbie Drone. So if you get one of these and you find that you're breaking the frames more than I'm reporting here, you might look at one of those 2 other frames. Of course, transitioning should be straight over. Hopefully it doesn't affect the tune very much. One point I did miss is that on some crashes, like in my speed run crashes, I noticed that the board would pop loose. So it would kind of pop out of its little socket holders. And I think we can remedy that fairly easy if we want to, especially if you have a 3D printer. Just print a thin piece that we can put across here and just screw the screws right through it. I don't think you need to even get a print with holes in it. You can just take the screw right through it, and that will then give you something across here. You could, if you don't have a 3D printer, take a piece of electrical tape, cut it down to, you know, say some width. We don't want to add much weight. That's one of the reasons why this exists, is that it's really low weight, and whoops that are low weight tend to be better. But that electrical tape is relatively hardy. You might want to double it up, you know, fold it over and then screw it down. So if you have your board coming out a lot, that's a fairly quick kind of home remedy. Of course, you see these, it might be hard to see, there's these little notches out here. You could take a Loom Band, which I've shown on the channel before, and you could possibly take it from the underneath side up through here behind the, or underneath the canopy to the other side and latch it down here. And that might squeeze this together as well as hold the board down with a weight penalty of maybe 0.2 grams or something like that. But I think it flew very well. I think I'd like to tighten up the tune just a touch if I could, but you know, quite honestly, I'm not unhappy enough with the tune where I would probably spend any time doing it. I think I would have to be in a tuning mood in order to spend much time trying to increase the tune. It's not terrible. Obviously, I showed you how it fly in 2 different instances. So yeah, one other thing I am a bit concerned about in this configuration, see how the USB port sticks up? I'm a little bit concerned that, you know, the battery should protect it, but the battery might also hit it in crashes. I had a lot of crashes, of course, so battery hitting it over there, there's a possibility that we could end up with some USB port damage. It's relatively minor because these batteries aren't that heavy, but, you know, all crashes are different depending upon what you're crashing into and what speed you're crashing at. It's possible. Of course, the rubber band that I have here is white, but the ones they include in the bag, where'd the bag go? The rubber bands that they have here are thicker, and they are black, so they'll match the motif a little bit better. But Yeah, I just have a kind of an office looking rubber band holding my battery on. That's how it came to me. I do think this rubber band could, we could loop it around each arm and make it all tighter and have a nice square. But pretty interesting that they went this route with a whoop that transitions to a more outdoor appropriate, wind appropriate micro, which I guess is added value for those of us that are willing to spend the time to transition from one to another. Personally, I'll fly inside so much that I wouldn't take something like this outside. But I think if you've only got this quad, or maybe you've only got this quad with you, maybe you want to take it in your lunchbox. You've got a tiny little box that's, about the size of a deck of cards, and you take this and throw it in your lunchbox with a radio that's small and a handful of batteries and your goggles. Maybe that's your go bag, and you're flying outside because it's nice out now. And then you transition back over to the whoop when it gets a little bit yucky and cold out. It's all about how you see your use cases working out for you. It should be noted that, unfortunately, a lot of manufacturers are going through problems in getting chips for these boards. There's potential that you won't necessarily get exactly what I have had here. In my particular case, I've got the MPU 6000, and there is a possibility that yours could come with the ICM 2689 or the BMI 270. And you won't really know what you're going to get. And that's not specific to Happy Model. We're going to see this more and more with our flight controller manufacturers, that they're just having to get chips where they can get chips, and that they know they work with Betaflight. That's just kind of the times we're living in right now. Not ideal by any stretch. So to sum up, is it better than the MoBeetle 6? Let's say this is my representation of the MoBeetle 6. It's got the right board and the right motors, but everything else has been kind of swapped out. Yeah, in my opinion, as I said earlier in the video, because of Express LRS, because of that 400 milliwatt VTX, because of the weight, the MoBeetle 6 is better than the MoBeetle 6. But is it my favorite? No, I still like the MoBeetle 7 1S. That's my favorite. But again, I like the 75 millimeter format and the way it feels. Is it right for you? Is it too fast? Is it right for you? I can't answer that. That's kind of depend on you. Is it too fast? No, it's not too fast. It's just like any quad. Lower the camera angle and it naturally just slows you down. We can add some expo, or we can do a throttle curve. We can do all sorts of things to soften the movement. Flying inside is hard. I've spent a lot of time doing it. So if you're new to the channel, I've been flying inside for several years. I can't even tell you how long now, 4 years, and in the same house. The furniture's moved around and stuff. So flying inside is hard, and you have much less room for error. And I think flying inside, flying whoops specifically inside, make you better when you go outside. Because once you got, going through doorways and under chairs and stuff down, when you go outside, you look at everything a little bit differently, and you're a little bit more comfortable because you've already done it in a much more confined space. So stretching your FPV legs outside, that's easy peasy. As of this moment in this recording, I only see one shop with these officially listed, and I do think they have them in stock. I received a message from them a couple days ago that they received some. Whether they still have them or not, I don't know. But they have the price listed at $129. This diamond board, for those of you who like to build, $66.99 from MakerFire. MakerFire also has a combo kit where you can get the Jumper T Pro and this. That ranges in price from $219 to $232. So if you're getting started, you might be interested in picking up a radio. Whether it's bound or not, I don't know. It's very likely it's not bound, but I couldn't say accurately. That's just a guesstimation. Hopefully this video hasn't gone on too long and bored you too much. I tried to get as much information in the videos as I can, so if you have the patience to watch the entire video, you can get as many answers as you possibly can. If it was too long, maybe you're gone already and you just watched the flight footage, and hopefully you enjoyed spending a little bit of your time here with the channel. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.